Let's talk about some clinical correlates, right? The first one I want to talk about is something called tubal ligation. Some of you may have heard this as sterilization. Right, and we talked about this before. We said that if you look at the ovarian follicle, it's going to release an egg. And in a normal person, that egg will eventually migrate up to, so the egg is in green, or the ovum. And that egg will migrate towards the fallopian tube, where if there's a sperm that goes up the fallopian tube, it's going to fertilize the egg. But in tubal ligation, what's actually happening is that path on the fallopian tube is being obstructed. Either it can be cut, right? You can cut it, right? That's what's called tubal ligation, right? Sometimes it is cauterized. It is cut and then cauterized, meaning it's burned, right? Sounds pretty painful. Some of you may have heard this as having your tubes tied, right? It can be banded, right? In all three cases, there is really no meetup between the sperm and the egg. So it is difficult, nearly impossible, for the woman to get pregnant. The next one is actually removal of the ovaries, right? Why would someone remove their ovaries, right? If you were to remove her ovaries, do you think it's possible for the woman to become pregnant? And the answer is no, because remember, the ovaries contain the eggs, and if you can't release the eggs, there's no, right, what's the sperm going to fertilize, right? Why would someone have their ovaries removed? Most common explanation, simple explanation, is cancer, ovarian cancer, right? If you don't want that cancer to spread beyond the ovaries, typically they would remove the ovaries, right? Next up are twins. There are fraternal twins and identical twins. We said before that every month the ovarian follicle, right? Remember the ovarian follicle is up here? Right over here. It's got follicle cells and an egg. Every month, one of those ovarian follicles releases an egg into the abdominal cavity of a woman. So if we go over here, right, is it possible, we said before, for this ovary to also release an egg and eventually have a sperm simultaneously during that same time period fertilize both eggs, one egg from the ovary on the left and another from the ovary on the right? And the answer is yes. If they both get fertilized and they both get implanted in the uterus and they both become fetuses, right? We call those fraternal twins. On the flip side, let's say one egg were to be fertilized by one sperm. That would get implanted, that would still get implanted right in the uterine lining, right? But if this becomes either 2 fetuses or 3 fetuses, those are identical twins. They have the same exact DNA, right? So every identical twin has the same exact DNA because they came essentially from the same zygote. All right, and we're going to talk about the other clinical correlates in the next